Hey everyone, I'm Tassinix, and welcome to Plotting and Scheming for Week 49, 5 versus 5 Grand Arena Championship preview. I am joined here with my co-hosts Dagger, TJ, and Sasha Isha. It's the day after Christmas. I'm still feeling festive, so here I am, still in my Christmassy getup. But how you guys doing? Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Did you guys have a good one?
For sure. Good one. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you guys.
TJ?
I hope that every fiber of my being that Krampus gave you what you deserved.
That beating. Yeah.
I'm gonna be a bah humbug. So my threes didn't end well. So bah humbug and screw you too.
All right. Well, good.
Yeah,
That's
holidays were good. The aftermath of holidays not so good. You know, the
Always.
normal stuff.
an American tradition. All right,
Yeah.
guys. Well, it was a pretty momentous season of threes, so it's kind of it's always a culture shock going back to fives after threes, especially if you get really involved in threes, because the way that you're thinking about the board, for me at least, is qualitatively different. So going into fives here, we don't have a new Datacron set to consider yet, right? This next conquest coming around the corner is the last hurrah for set 12, right?
That would be correct, sir.
So we don't have something really new there. That means that this is also the last hurrah for set 11, right? Set 11 expires at the end of this next season.
Mm-hmm.
So
It does.
So it looks like we've been in this kind of pattern before, right? Where our meta for fives is going to look pretty much the same as our meta for last season, right?
Yes, but with the introduction of the Bo-Katan Mandalore, I think there's some shift, at least some new ingredient to the recipe.
Well, I mean, that's a great topic. I'd love to talk about. For those who sprung for Bo-Katan, I've heard from Dagger. I've heard from others, a good handful of others, about what this. This team is killing like 7 of the GLs, between 4 and 7 of the GLs, depending on who you talk to. What thoughts do you guys have? What matchups are you aware of? And how do you feel? Like, what do you feel like the requirements are to do that? You got to have the leadership Omicron. There's a certain set of Datacron that's needed to make some of these work.
Nothing.
Like, what kind of detail do we got on this going on?
Scoundrel 5% stacking, no Omicrons in arena. Like, just get fucked. Get all the way fucked.
We are in the world, and I'll ask it because I think it's going to come up, right? We are in the world of haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
Star Killer brings to mind of what we have right now, and I'm not talking about defense, right? Dagger said it, and I think the biggest thing that kicks to me is your offensive power is hugely boosted with this team. And in the world of have-nots, that means you get to do a lot more on defense because you have this new tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially if the team is correctly set up. I guess from Dagger's point, he didn't really do much to it, but if it's even more in GAC, you can do a lot stronger things on defensive now. So it's the haves and the have-nots are really prevalent for this season.
So certainly defensive meta-wise, it does permit you +1 GL on defense, so I take that point.
Yeah, so just for context, with a pre-taunt you can beat JMK, and it beats every other GL except for Leia with the Drogon Crown, to my knowledge.
Wow.
I can't speak to the overall consistency of all of them, but I can tell you that I have personally used Bo-Katan to just dump your fuck every GL.
And what I think is
I don't
funny,
have her.
though,
I'm just saying like I have access to an account that does.
Yeah.
She's dumb.
And that's what I think is funny about it, right? Is everything Dagger is saying is nothing tested or done in GAC. We don't even know what it looks like when the Omicrons are active.
Yeah,
right.
Does
it really add, right? Dagger's just like, hey, I went in, we started bringing up things, and we were beating all this and that and this, and it's like, that was just an arena. So we don't even know what this looks like when you're getting more shit.
So the immediate position is that if you at least have the character and you weren't even able to sync an Omicron onto it, no muss, no fuss.
Yeah, it's gonna crush Lord Vader, and it's gonna crush Slacker, and probably even Rey with no Omis. I'm just trying to think the Ben Omi might get in the way and gack a little bit. Him coming back might be obnoxious. But then you just take a no revive, a scout a no revive, and then you don't care, or you make sure that you birds Ben off the board. Like this team has too many tools to be bad.
Yeah.
Paz can eat like 3 whirlwinds without healing. Like the dude has like 500 HP. Yeah. I kid you not. Like if you mod him for all health, go look at all the multipliers from Bo's like.
No. I mean, I can't. He's going to be my next R9 for Paz. I know everybody else has been doing that. I've got him at Relic 8 right now at 140k health and like 80k prod. He's a monster. He's gonna be just nasty.
Yeah, I just took him to 9. That was my key 9 for that team because it's just.
I completely agree. I threw my last 9 that I had available at Bo-Katan. I'll put it up here on screen for folks because I know.
For the other good folks out there, I would do Paz like 3.5 times before I did Bo.
Yeah. I have my own reason, and that's why I'm highlighting it.
Tass is a stinky whale. He's not a dirty whale.
Yeah, he's a
stinky whale. You smell him coming, right? He's got a certain aroma.
Yeah, he's a bum. He's the kind of Tass is the kind of guy who R9 Lord Vader before Royal Guard. You know what I mean? Like he's just kind of a bum.
I would that does sound like some shit I would do. I'll be honest with you about that.
All right. So I was trying to look at this, right? Because we're talking about the have and the have-nots.
Yeah.
Am I understanding it right? And I was looking, and somebody else can tell me if I'm wrong. GG. How many people actually got
920-ish.
So it's like looking at less than 1,000. That's why I wanted to look at this, right? And it's like, so you can figure that's all of us in Kyber 1 minus like Dagger, right? Dagger's a small percentage, and not to out Dagger, but he's screwed.
Yes.
If you ever want to talk dirty to Dagger, just ask him how's his Bo-Katan doing, and he will absolutely give you a thank you for asking.
I will respond to you by telling you how your mom is doing.
Yeah, like for the next 3 to 6 months. For the next 3 to 6 months, he is going to be a surly bear with a big open sore on his side, and you're just going to be tempted to stick that finger in there.
That's where it's like, so out of the table, it almost feels like that where we're at with Kyber 1, right? It's a different game right now. We're break down immediately into you run GG history.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have Bo? Because that media is, you don't have Bo? I get to do this, this, and this. And what's great is after this week 1 of coming up with that, I think it's going to be even bigger, right? Because you can only think so far, but somebody will test something that's like, this looks super easy. Oh, this makes perfect sense. Why would I get that? So that insight data is going to be huge for that following week.
No doubt. And for those people who don't have Bo, don't feel too bad. When they released Keller and Beck, I did get him. He's the third marquee I've ever purchased in my 7 years of playing this game.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they released Bo, it was still another $500 minimum, probably closer to $700 to get her. And it's just I'm just going to pass at that point.
Yeah.
So for anybody else who didn't get her,
they old schooled it.
Just know that this shit was this might be the most gated release they've ever released.
It was pretty aggressive.
As far as the financial cost to acquire.
It's been a while, man. It's been a while, right?
It was like Malik. Malik was the last one like this. Yeah, Malik was the last one like this.
They FOMO'd it pretty strong, dude. They've come out to something of this regard, right? To limit out the time again, the whole 3 days or whatever it's going to be. So it was coming. The only thing, and I talked about it with Dagger, the only piece that does feel gratifying if you didn't get her is that if she was a monster on defense, I think you'd be in a worse spot, right? She is great on offense, but looking at how the team plays it, whatever, really doesn't feel like it's going to be anything on defense for now. We don't know what the next Datacron's going to be.
Yeah.
That evens the field, right? Because normally I would tell Dagger, we were talking about JKC, right? And I'm like, you're crazy if you don't get JKC. JKC's a monster. And immediately you feel the effect of how good JKC was and was more easy, it was more accessible to get. This one less accessible, but I don't even think they can do something with a Datacron that's going to make her feel like, oh shit, she's on defense now. What do I do?
make her immune to health, make her whole team immune to health % damage, and you just fuck over like 80% of the counters that exist.
EZ is always listening. This is a popular show. Don't say that. Don't do it.
But also we talked about this more in private than we have here, so I'll just mention it here too.
Yeah, please.
All of these things are really, really good that come out, but they tend to have a less than 6 month shelf life, as like dominant. See Riva, see Cal, etc. But one thing to keep remembering is the more air quotes meta things we get, the less relevant. Not saying they're not relevant, but the less relevant the new thing is. Like we have 8 GLs now. How relevant is Bo-Katan if you have all 8 GLs? Right? When Leia came out, Leia with her Kron is amazing. Leia without her Kron is going to be pretty good still. But if you don't have Leia yet, like how screwed are you actually? Right? And we've talked about this more in private. It's like if you don't have Bo, it's like you're missing one of the like 15 power teams.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, yes, you're missing something, but if they don't expand the board, the amount that you get punished continues to shrink. The more things like this they release.
Yeah, and I mean, in the short term, for those, if you're facing matchups where they have this Bo-Katan and you don't, then it's just an invitation to more gamesmanship on your part. Like, you can have more GLs in the back or something where it's like, you know, he doesn't get to do some clever punch-up on the front. He has to get through all of this stuff he doesn't want to use a GL on, but it might be strong enough that he has to burn one. And then he has to use Bo-Katan to kill exactly one team in the back anyway. Like, it can be mitigated, for sure.
Well, it's a little bit of copium paired with a little bit of, like, understanding that we have a ton of power in this game right now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say here again, I got it on screen now. So I took mine to Relic 9 because, and I don't know if this is still true, but as of the other day, I think I have like one of the highest offense Bo-Katans in the world at 13K.
Here's my concern with your response, and this is where I'll put this. This is not from the dagger of fuck you. It's realistically, Relic 9 gives you how much more offense? And that's an honest question, right?
Yeah, I would say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 500. Something like that.
Like on physical, it's 270, but it also adds crit damage. But 270 physical.
And I was including the multipliers from this being all offense primaries because she's a true damage character.
But this is the only reason I wanted to say this and why it's like yes, Taz does have to do his whaley stinky butt thing, and that's fine. Taz, you stinky butted all day. I'm okay with it. Taz, 100%. You want a monster, but it's like. So I'll get to what? So to be fair, I took mine to R8, and I think I'm fine at R8. And if I'm at 12.5 or whatever number it's going to be,
I don't think you're bad. No, and you know what? Like honestly, on balance, you guys are probably right that Paz is the higher priority Relic 9. But the heart wanted what the heart wanted, and that's all. Hey, that's all I got.
It's a Christmas miracle. You got what you got.
That's all I got.
Bo's probably the fourth priority on that team to R9. Right? Bo's probably the fourth priority.
Your mom. That's all I got for that one.
As long as she's got a Relic 9 as 2, then everybody can be happy. It's another Christmas miracle.
I think IG is probably a little bit higher priority too because of the healing. And,
you really think 9 for that? Because I was thinking like I'm gonna park that at 8, and it's around like 145k health, like at 8.
So keep in mind, the higher the relic, the more speed you can just jack into that son of a bitch. Right, the more you're willing to relic it, the less you have to pay attention to your secondary.
Right, you can
lessen juice nothing.
Right, because you lessen your stats. Yeah, he's just talking about being able to lessen your stats because obviously he's a Hoda. You know what? Maybe I think that's a good question for the modding perspectives.
No, I definitely think that like when I did a survey, you know how I study the people who have the new characters that I don't, and I put together my own thing here for Grogu. Everybody had either straight health or a combination of health and speed. And some of those people that went with the health and speed didn't go with the speed arrow. They just went with a really fast health primary. But some went with the full speed. And when you stop and think about it, like, I knew I was going to take it to Relic 8 just for the health gains, for sure. And then looking at it like that, it's like, yeah, at this level of health, like, being, like, 340 speed is, like, the place to be. Like,
but the point I'm trying to make is that Bo has such diminishing returns on her R9.
Yeah.
Just, like, she has some, but I'm saying, like, we'll have to see what she needs. Like, this goes back to what we talked about the last time we did this video, where Sasha and I had a conversation, what we all did, about this is going to beat GLs. What level does it have to be at to beat everything?
Yeah.
And right now, the answer to that is R7.
Very nice. Very nice.
I think it's another one.
Oh.
One, I think two things happened right with the Bo event. Keller and Beck and Bo both built in very you need 4 characters synergy to make the team complete. So it's almost like you're looking at you can do things with Afra, right? But she feels better when she has 2 more characters on her team. This is a very synergistic character where the team is doing the work around Bo. Bo, yes, is good. Beck is awesome. But you want these full, complete teams. They're basically like 5 GAC built to show the true power of what the team can do. And I still call it, and I know Dagger will talk about it. I know I'm probably using it, but it's like, to me, it's the BAM lifter, right? You kind of there's certain pieces that go on.
Your verbiage is poor, but the point is taken.
That's where I go at. And I know we keep fighting on it, but it's like, to me, it still stands true that they tried to do something with BAM. It was incomplete. They needed more pieces. So this is coming in to try to really hone in on this true damage and what this is going to do. And your birds go in and you go pop and things go bang. And they just go goodbye.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big thing.
There's a lot to be said for how critical the synergies are of having all those parts come together, like TJ was saying. And you can certainly see as we test out the new Bo-Katan, like Dagger was saying, and I've only done a little bit of this in Arena, and that's obviously then without the Omicrons active. And yeah, it's super impressive. But the counter example of when not all synergies are present and there just isn't that sort of blossoming of extreme potential was Keller and Beck in threes, at least for me. God, if I could just squeeze a couple more pieces in there, Keller and Beck could either make a Qui-Gon team or his own team really meaningful. And I thought in threes, the failure to sort of be able to bring on board a couple of other sort of Galactic Republic Jedi synergies was a real difference maker. Like Bo-Katan, Bo-Katan, I think, would punch much higher than Keller and Beck in threes, but you still have some really tough trade-off calls to make. You're either not bringing BAM, Paz, IG-12. There's somebody is going to be missing on that.
The easy one due to the lack of birds in threes.
Right.
But
right.
Yes. Also, the professional 3v3 hater in me is super happy that these new characters seem to be more mid in threes because I'm just a professional 3v3 hater.
Well,
but,
I know that we're focused. Sorry.
Wherever I slam this fucker, you're not bad batching it. That's all I know. I don't know what you're doing to it, but it ain't gonna be in bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that we're focused here on 5 versus 5, but to your point though, Dagger, I don't think 3 versus 3 could bear more power teams because it's laborious. It's definitely a lot of work to climb in threes. So yeah. Go ahead.
I don't think it's a topic necessarily for today's conversation, but at some point I'd love to go deeper on thoughts of how to evolve or enhance GAC generally. I started to feel in threes, and it's kind of the flip side of Dagger's hatred and just sort of wanting to say, geez, I'm delighted that these new things aren't having that big of an impact. But for me, I go all out on these new things, and yes, I want to be able to play with those. But I actually found, I was mentioning to TJ offline previously, I had my most fun in threes when I had a couple of, and I think this is going to be the case in fives as well, where if you have a fail here or there, and you're starting to dig deeper in your roster and having to get more creative, and I'm like, man, I kind of miss being able to have use of some of these squads. So I just wonder if we're at a point now where the map hasn't grown, rosters have really grown, and there's all this sort of OP stuff that it's expand the map, change the format, do something so we can dig a little deeper on rosters, and it's not pure Galactic Legend on Galactic Legend or Datacron lifted club that is sort of pseudo Galactic Legend.
I can give you an easy answer.
Yeah,
you would need CG if they're not going to expand the board to do what they did that a minimal time for that TW setup. where they make somebody cool, right? They would have to do something to otherwise mitigate the power creep that you can see happening. Unless they go and touch up a kit or they do something else, nothing changes, right? So you just watch the natural progression of power creep on teams and or characters where even when they're newer, the irrelevance still starts to die down. A perfect one to look at would be 12 months later. We're coming into 12 months now, right? And look at Zori. 2 years ago, look at Iden. These were great when they came. You're watching the creep, and even Dagger and I were having a pretty good conversation of Zori was becoming the 15th team on the board. And what that meant was in threes, when we were looking at it, she was just living up to a point where you have her figure it out, things are working, but she's still a strong character. But that's where we're watching that natural progression of the creep happen between the Datacrons and between the kits just starting to become outdated, where either they have to take and this time for fives, the back team will only allow 4 characters. 1 lead, 3 characters, pick a team that has to do this, and that's what you have to work on. Or it's going to be light side Jedi tanks are going to give this extra boost or something else. They would have to do something that would alter the way the game is played because of the way the progression of the power creep is just so strong now. And it's toppled by Datacrons and Omicrons.
Yeah, I mean, like, we talk about this ad nauseum. At least TJ and I have. Tash has been present for some of them. The board's too small for us to actually be able to utilize our rosters effectively. So, like, the top end of, like, GAC, the how do I phrase this? The bar for entry to, like, the top 200 of GAC in Kyber 1 is actually reasonably low because you don't need to have a bajillion relics, really, but you don't really need to have a bajillion mods or datacrons because everyone is catching up, right? So having, like, they have to release things like Bo to give people the haves and the have-nots, because if you look at Tom Ford as a great example. He has everything. He just has, like, he's minus 2 million GP on everybody, but he still has everything.
Yeah.
And that allows him to compete. Now, I'm not saying that you're not at a disadvantage. I'm saying the bar for entry to the top 200 is not super high right now because, for good or for ill, Jabba and Leia were reasonably accessible to most players after a couple months. They gave us additive drops. They gave us, like, a bonus calendar, right? They gave us a bunch of access to these GLs because they were tied to raids to allow more people to get them. So I think CG is in this weird spot where the board's not expanding and they're giving us pretty good access to the newest GLs as long as you're willing to wait a couple months. And it's not like Bo where it's going to be back in 3 months. These GLs are just there when you get there, right? So I think CG has to, like, if they actually want, to Sasha's point, if they actually want people to use the majority of their rosters, they have to fundamentally do something to change GAC again. I don't know what that is. Like TJ pointed out, you can do the bonuses. You can expand the board. There's a lot of different things you could do, but CG has to actually do them, and they barely just fixed the squish like a month ago.
I would say that of all of the things they could, I agree. I don't know what the best solution is, but I know what the worst one is. I wouldn't expand the board. Like, the expanding of the board is the Band-Aid. If you expand it again, then there needs to be some sort of schedule for it. Like, there needs to be an understanding that after so many seasons, based on, they could put out an announcement saying, based on our anticipated release schedule and the number of teams this creates, this would mean that the board is capable of bearing only X teams when Y number of teams are actually feasible to go on defense and have the same for offense. Therefore, we propose a schedule in which the board is expanded by this many teams every so many months. Something that would be the way I could see that being acceptable. Like if they really broke it out like that. But the last time they expanded it, they were like, yeah, you know what? Like, yeah, things feel a little tight. We're just gonna open that up and we'll see how it goes. And ultimately, what I said still allows them the same freedom to do what they need to do. Like, but having a sense of, like, here's what you can count on about the future of the game, and about, look, like, we see that in certain time intervals, the game's gonna just take straight up more time to do, whether it's threes or fives.
So I'll tell you one. I want to give 2 points.
Yeah.
One, I hate to see it, and I'll be this guy now. We're just talking about with Sasha, and it's like, I'm not liking where, personally, from my play style and how I like to do things, I am not happy with the way the game is turning into GAC. And Dagger said one thing, right? Bo makes it worse. Everything feels so fucking efficient, and I'm tired. And I keep saying this, and I will continue to say this, right? When we talk about it, and we still have to do the video on the threes.
Yeah,
it was like I did the recap.
That's why I want to keep our conversation turning back toward fives.
I'm going to. There's a reason, right? This actually does have progression. In threes, it became an efficiency thing. It's we're creating now super teams in fives. So what we're looking at, right?
Yes.
We're going to create these new super teams. Having Bo, I can make a super team. Just being idiot about the wording. And then the other point I wanted to come with, one, I had to do my little vent. I hate efficiency, and that's where this is going, and I'm really not happy with the way it's set up. Two, and where I think it's time for them to do is they're going to continue to do the release on ships. I honestly think, and Dagger's going to hate me for this, they need to add at least a 4th fleet and or even to a 5th fleet. And I have to say it like this, right? Low-hanging fruit. Everybody hates fleets. We have enough fleets now. If you want to do the worst thing that it can, I don't care. I'm going to call it what it is, right? If I'm looking for ways to improve it, adding that difficulty into fleets of everybody's used to, I have 3, it's going to be this, and everybody's doing the same thing. Adding a 4th fleet, but
do you want to have 18 to 20 teams on the ground?
Do I want to? No, because it's
in 5. Then shut the fuck up.
Oh, it's true.
If you want 5 fleets, if you want 5 fleets in the air, that is the equivalent of 20 squads on the ground.
I understand it.
Right?
But everybody does the same bullshit in fleets. We have
the same is true on the ground. Everybody does the same bullshit on the ground.
That's right.
It's not just fleets.
I honestly think they need to add one more to the back on 5s. If you want the honest truth, they need to go to a 4th and a 5th.
I don't disagree. I'm simply saying that don't point at fleet and say, let's just make everybody who hates fleet miserable. And
I hate it too. But I'm telling you, it's like we're continuing to get additional fleets every year. We get a new powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not disagreeing.
Now at a point. I know, and I know you're not happy about it, and I know Dagger luck on ships is like my luck on ground.
It's not about the luck. It's not about the luck. It's literally about the amount of task touch on it.
All right. Well, we've had our fun out here in the weeds. We've had our fun out here in the weeds, like talking about stuff that's like tapping on the side of threes, and like we said, we'll definitely have that covered in.
I'm saying it was. I wanted to make sure I got to his point, right? So Sasha asked the point about how do we progress the
game,
board.
Yeah, right.
And that's what I'm saying. I went low-hanging fruit of the one. It's not that I'm happy about the answer, but if I go back and look at it, having 3 fleets is not enough fleet when you have this many to work on. So adding just one.
No, adding just one.
Right, adding just one, right? Because now you're at a point.
How many meta fleets would you say we have?
You're 3. I call it 3. I guess Marauder.
No. Remember when they went from 2 to 3 fleets on defense, we had just hit having 6 real fleets.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're talking about the overall. Fleet. But that's I think that's why I say right.
To be able to field it, right?
That's why I say that.
They don't, like Tass said, every time they've expanded the board, it's been a band-aid, right? They've reacted to our rosters being sufficient. Right, so when we hit 6 fleets, they're like, all right, we'll go up to 3. When we hit 6 full fleets, right, we had like Executor, whatever. No, Executor wasn't even out yet when we went to 3 fleets. But we had 6 fleets total, so what CG has been doing is instead of creating a place where you actually, we still only have like 6, maybe 7 meta fleets. Like that number hasn't actually changed.
That's the reason to add the extra fleet.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with Tessa's point either. It's just I have to look at what can they honestly do and look at Sasha's actual question. It's not even that I'm happy about the answer. I just look at it as like if I throw an extra fleet in there because I don't know how they fix ground because your points are super valid.
Well,
right?
here
and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. but I believe when we went to 11 teams on defense, we only had 5 GLs in the game.
I don't remember.
And no Star Killer, no Omis.
I think they still had I think Star Killer was there though.
No.
I don't remember.
They changed it when they announced the change, which was before Star Killer.
Oh, okay. I don't.
I thought it was. I thought it was like either right when Lord Vader came out or right before Lord Vader came out.
Well,
right?
Sasha.
What I'm saying is.
Well, no, go ahead. Sorry, Dare. Finish your.
All I'm pointing out is we don't think of. We know that it's been a couple of years since they expanded the board, but we don't think about at least I didn't until we started having this conversation. Think about the context of what the game looked like the last time we expanded the board. Because it was pre-Omis, and we've gotten at least 2 GLs, maybe 3. We've gotten Star Killer, Afra, like Malgus, right? Like But that's what I'm saying. Look what we've gotten since the change. And that's why I'm agreeing overall, like with Sasha, that when they changed this, we didn't even have Omis in the game.
That's true.
I would
agree on it. Yeah. That's the only reason I come up with the shivs, man. It's just that it's another area right now. Definitely a band-aid.
Just give us ship mods.
Fuck, dude. Man, we are all right.
See, there we go.
I just want to talk about what I'm going to do with Dagger if I see him and he doesn't have Bo-Katan, dude. Fuck A.
More specifically, ship Datacrons. Don't give them speed.
Yeah, this guy.
Let us change the turn order on our goddamn fleet.
Let's really. Oh, that would actually be pretty cool. Being able to change the turn order.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's like, holy fuck, dude. We're on the ship Datacrons and let's just get the ship Omis on top of getting 6 fleets and only got 8 reliable, so you can do nothing. Yay, the game is better now.
I just think Fleet could be a much more enjoyable experience. And I know that there are people who like Fleet. I know Tass was one of them at one point. I don't actually mind Fleet. My RNG is just bad.
What do you mean was? I still enjoy Fleet just fine. I just don't like Han's Millennium Falcon. Okay? Yeah. I think I've been extraordinarily clear about that point.
Yeah, he's a fucking bum. I guess the point I'm trying to make on Fleet is not necessarily an enjoyable or rewarding experience in this game, because the only time you have any memories of it are when you're getting fucked.
It is. I'm sorry. It is the line in the sand for a win or a loss in GAC.
I'm just pointing out that very few people have positive connotations when Fleet is mentioned, where when you talk about the ground, people talk about all the theory crafting they did, all the interesting things they did because of mods and Datacrons. I want that in Fleet too. I want to be able to dick around in Fleet in a fight I've already lost. I want to have to, like Sasha said, dig deep and try to find something that works, as opposed to, I guess I'm going to try First Order here. Right?
I don't see how they.
Sasha,
yeah, I would like this.
Yeah, I was just wanting to make sure that Sasha put us on this track here. Did you have any bright ideas yourself about what you wanted to see? That would affect fives here. We'll take your question and apply it to the upcoming season. But I'm curious about it, if you had any thoughts that would, like the meta shift that we've seen is in general over the last few seasons in particular is trending towards efficiency, but it's hyper efficiency in threes, where the margins are frequently less than 1 banner for victory or not 1 banner, but 1 drop for victory or defeat. And then you have in fives, you have the creation of super teams, right? People consolidate to try and block further counters, or popular counters, stuff like that. Those are some of the things that define those modes. But in the case of fives, what do you think a fix is? When you say you want to see the next step revolution in the game, something occur to you there?
Sadly, I'm kind of coming to the discussion with problems, but not solutions.
That's okay.
I don't have anything in particular in mind, but there are a few things that are have always kind of intrigued me, and I know they come with their own risks or downside too. And I'm not saying they're practical solutions, because I don't think that CG would do it, but I would not mind seeing an enhancement in AI's play of defensive squads. I think we are at a point now where I actually take a less joy out of my matches when they are purely efficiency, and I think that if you had a stronger defensive AI that you were trying to counter. Like they were better at focus fire, they were better or smarter simply about opposing team kits. And I'm not saying that's practical. I don't think that they would do it given the resources and age of the game. But I actually think we're at a point now, like early on, I think that would have been hugely problematic because this is a game that you're trying to optimize for the human experience and the human's only on one side of the battle. Make the human win. And that's kind of what they've done. But for some competitive balance, I think that would be pretty cool. I also wouldn't mind if they just did an additional PvP 1v1 format that was, I don't know if it's like a hybrid of maybe it's like it's guild related PvP where it's like a mixture of GAC and TW, where you get matched up against an opponent in another guild. Your guildmates do too. You set individual maps, something like that. So I don't have cool. Really. Yeah, I that would see be interesting. You're going to end up with some gross mismatches out of that, and so there again reasons not
no
to do it. No different
than GAC in that context. I mean,
yeah. But my point is really
GAC isn't meant to be fair or anything. They literally structured GAC to reward players with the biggest rosters.
It's true.
Yeah.
There's no illusion to fairness in the current GAC system. Don't even try to say that.
All right. Well, we've had a good 20 or so minutes here talking about what we thought we'd like to see or what we see are problems here in the game. I'd like to take us back onto thoughts more towards fives, and you guys are welcome to put up any topic you want. But I wanted to throw out here, some of the new characters that define the latter part of this previous 3 season was DTMG, Keller and Beck, and people thought for a moment that there was hope for Luminara Omicron, and that proved to be disappointing. So the question is, outside of what seems obvious, you have some interesting ideas that you want to talk about for application of these new characters. Like, does DTMG, is he leading his own team for you in fives, or is he possibly getting manwiched up there with Lord Vader? Because, like I was saying a minute ago, the tendency for fives is to try and concentrate for superpower teams. So we've already seen, like a Lord Vader team last season that was Lord Vader, Maul, and Gar ISC and something, right? It could be almost anything. Now you can have that same thing plus DTMG, and I was thinking about Keller and Beck. Is he just full time in it now? As do I lose Kit Fisto on my Qui-Gon team now? Is Kelleran full time in it there? Just your thoughts, you guys, on the applications of on the new characters here.
I'm happy to jump in. I will say for the DTMG squad, with the current trooper datacrons, the defense into offense, I'm finding that squad just hits incredibly hard. So you combine the damage output with revivability and just general survivability of it, that coupled with actually the vulnerability it has to AdRad and some cheaper counters on defense, that I think it's going to have serious potential to punch up on offense. So that would be my inclination, and so valuable that I wouldn't take the new Gideon off of his own remnant squad. I would allocate all the remnants except Dark Trooper to him. And then I am curious to see what Keller and Beck can potentially do. Just various combinations there. I rushed mine out to R9, and that was probably the least sensible thing I've done in a while. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see that. And then one last thing I'll drop in and then hand it off is that I realize we've projected this in the past. I feel like that it's just all offense meta, and it's so hard to stop people. I feel like we've done that in the past and we've maybe overestimated. I still feel like that's the case right now. But in these situations where it feels like offense, it's just the game is rigged in favor of going on offense, that my approach tends to be, all right, on defense then, RNG is just going to be my friend. I'm going to do whatever I can to put some sort of variability and randomness against the opponent's attacks. And I think of stuff like I don't know that I'm going to do this, but like stuff that comes to mind for me is like, what if you did just a crazy slow chrysanthemum, and then you move your Jabba team with the new Boosh Kron and everything on the defense, and you just hope that as a matter of timing they get DI on Chrysanthemum when he has like no turn meter, and they'll have to wait like 10 minutes. And maybe get blown out by the rest of the squad between those types of variability. It's like you're not going to get a hard stop against an Afra, but you're going to get like a puncher's 30% chance or whatever.
Right.
Those are the things that like I may look for because I'm not feeling as confident in like, oh, I've got this really sound strategy that there's no way that they'll one-shot all these guys. It's like, no, probably an 80% plus chance on every single one of those battles. So that's those are some of my thoughts.
Thank you. Those were great. Appreciate it. TJ, Dagger, what do you anything you got to throw in on this? I know you guys usually like to play pretty close to the chest, whatever you're going to plan that's new, but I'm sure you've got some things that you know are already out in the wind.
Yeah. So, to one of the points Sasha made, if I have ever said anything other than we continue to move more deeply into an efficiency meta, I apologize. Because I do think that it's harder for things to hold, but it's now more games, like Taz has said before, it's more gamesmanship now. It's more trying to draw out the thing, read your opponent's tendencies than it has been in the past. Because things are so efficient, and in the Moff Gideon thing, like you brought up, the first question I have is, how many banners does this get on offense? Then my question is, what does it beat? Because if it beats something, like Gas beats stuff for like 50 or 60, 60 banners? 61 banners, that doesn't move the needle for me in most fights, right? Because I have things that can do it cheaper for better banners. So,
well, how do you respond to that, Sasha? That's a good counterpoint.
Right.
That's a good point. You want an answer on that real quick, Sasha?
No, I think it's I was quietly agreeing with Dagger that I think it's the right strategy to take. I don't find it as enjoyable as devising like a defensive scheme where I think I'm going to get holds. And one of the reasons I don't find it as enjoyable is my moments playing on offense, which is a good portion. I think we all enjoy the strategy and thinking about setting our defenses and what counters to use. And those decisions are often determinative in matchups. But the moment of playing offensive matches, when it's pure efficiency, and don't get me wrong, I end up in the probably more than my share of efficiency matches, but it just kind of sucks. There's like this extra stress and thinking like, oh gosh, are they going to get this last second AOE off? So I just don't enjoy it as much. But I absolutely agree with Dagger that that's the right way of thinking about it. Is that a gas on offense is less strategically beneficial because there's like inherent bleed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to the like the Gideon thing, I use Gideon on offense. Again, I know we're not talking about threes, right? But I have a reasonable idea from just using that on threes because it was so bad on defense. But I have a reasonable idea of what I want to try it against in fives, and I won't go through those ideas at least on this because there's some modding stuff that I want to try to tweak before I get there, etc. Like, but yeah, I have some ideas. And if you want to see what my ideas are, you can go look at my 3v3 history, I guess.
Fair. Stumping for Dagger's Swoga.gg account.
Yeah. But yeah, for the, and Sasha mentioned it, I think it was Sasha mentioned this, but someone mentioned this earlier with their Datacron still existing. The defense into offense level 6 for that team specifically with something like Stormtrooper is still completely ridiculous.
Captain
Watching Stormtrooper just hit for 500k is absurd.
Yeah.
So yes, this team is going to beat something. The question is what and for what band.
Sure.
Okay. So the plan overall.
Well, I know. I think I would try it against Gas. I would say that real quick because I know, like, you think about the things that you tried to counter it with last season. Like, everybody knows that Radis ended up being just a snap for it. That's fine. But think about, like, to your point, you just mentioned, like, Gas would be something like you would consider to be the floor for what you'd use on attack in terms of banner bleed. And it's like, I know using Gas against DTMG last season was rough business, so I expect that DTMG could just look Gas in the eye and just sit down.
But here's the question. Like, I agree. I think there's a pretty reasonable chance that Gideon beats Gas, but again, he can't revive anybody. So what are the
That's a
banners?
Yeah, that's true. That is
Yeah,
true.
yeah. But this is the point I'm trying to make is I think it beats a lot of stuff. The question is, what does it beat efficiently? And as far as the putting Gideon on defense thing goes, please, if you're my opponent, please do that. Please, make your Lord Vader team worse by putting Gideon there. He's not better than a lot of the other options you can put there. And here's the other thing too. I have a reasonable suspicion we're going to find out what GI lead no Reva Inquisitors can do again with these UFU Datacrons. I think we're going to start. I think that there's just looking at last 5v5 season and looking at the trend for 3v3, especially at the very top. I think there's a reasonable chance we start seeing Reva back on Lord Vader because it throws a wrinkle in like the JMK and JML counters.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So I think, and this is some of that stuff that like I know we talk about, but I think one of the things you have to do to prepare for this upcoming season, I'm not going to say get crafty or get like clever, but I feel like you're going to have to work harder for your whole. And I know Sasha mentioned that this isn't always the case, but I feel like you're going to have to work harder for your holds this season, especially if you're in that your opponents have bow breath.
That's fair.
So that's kind of the way I'm going into this threes. I have a little bit more specifics that'll probably come. Sorry, fives. I have some more specifics that might come up as we go on, but off the top of my head, it's mostly just tweaking mods and just trying to make sure that my offense teams are dialed in. Because I know we talk about this a lot, and I have started to move mods from defense to offense to allow my teams to punch up more. So I put stronger teams with stronger Datacrons and now slightly weaker mods on defense. Like speed hasn't mattered as much as of recent. So moving those higher quality mods onto the offense teams has been my trend the last, we'll say, 4-ish months.
All right. Well, good.
Sorry for the monologue.
No. Thanks for entertaining my question there, guys. Someone else could throw one into the pot. By the way,
TJ hasn't gone yet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to give 3 points. Looking at it, I think Gideon's going to hold more than people are thinking they're going to hold. New Gideon, watching it in threes, I think it's got the ability to do some pretty crafty things if you put the correct team together. And this is more solely based on Datacron reliance. Calling out Storm on that team after talking to Brock and seeing what it does. Boy, I cannot wait to see what Storm's going to do with this new Gideon on that 400%. Storm will be your killer, which is funny to say that the tank is the one you need to watch out for the most with 5 characters on the team. So that's the first one. The other one is going in and looking at it is I think the first question on everybody's mind should be, do you or do you not have bow? I think that's the simplest thing to do because then that's going to determine how heavy or hefty you get to make, right? I like Dagger's idea of throwing in the Reva on the LV team. I think super teams, we'll call them supers. I don't care. Super squared. Because what it's going to do is it's going to be a bigger piece where they're combining full pieces of this is going to do this now because Gar, ISC, and maybe Maul. And you're throwing in Gideon as another idea, right? Because he's supposed to work in there. So how does that work out now in fives? I think it's going to be another relevance. And I will say I also agree with Dagger. Right now, you start going through it. So I do all of my stuff basically through hot utils. I have a loadout I do for my GAC. And I did it in threes. I'm going to see myself doing it in fives.
Ooh, hiss.
I know, but what I think is
this is how you end up with like blue 5-dot mods on like your meditation.
I'm alright with that, but here's the one thing that I've noticed. Dagger, I thought you brought up a good point, and for the third one, is that you start looking at all the characters, and it's like I can start alleviating some of the mods that's going on there. So where I was requiring this and this amount of things or something like that, it's like, well, I can kind of make that less optimal now or less required. We'll just make that as a desired now or something else. So I think Dagger's point of you have more free reign to say, let the Datacron do its job. If you're going to beat the team, you're going to beat it. But I'm going to give more strong things I need on SLK. Or I'm going to give more strong things on, here's my key team. I need my Afra to have more potency. Or just something else silly where you can start saying, all right, this team was doing this for years. I'm going to give it less now because it's just not holding what it needs to hold. It'll still go on defense, but it's not going to be the key thing I need to look for anymore. And that means that my other characters who do need it can have it.
Yeah, some of us have mere mortal mods. We're not closing in on 600 plus 20s like some asshole in this chat.
Jesus, is that me?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was like, you don't talk to Sasha like that. He's a nice guy.
I'm just saying, like, I have a lot of mods, but even I know TJ is a little bit is a little more constrained than me on some mods.
Yep.
So yeah, like if I'm feeling the pinch, I know TJ is, right, and I know I'm more blessed to have my mods than a lot of other people are, right, because I have more mods than a lot of people. But when you have to mod 25 to 28 teams because you're going to drop a couple, or you have to make, or you can't just have your scrubby teams and boo-boo ass mods, right? Like your Ewoks have to have something.
He's right
because
about that.
especially with the Datacron, they're usable. So
I will say I feel worse in 5s than I do in 3s, which is funny to say because there's a lot less characters that require it. So it's like in 5s, I actually feel worse and more stringent because it's like I still have to mod for 5 characters per team. So it actually means more characters.
And turn orders
more
matter
stuff.
so much more.
You got
turn
it.
orders matter so much more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
Very
I feel a
specific
lot strained. Yep.
Sorry, Sasha, you were going to chime in?
No, I was just agreeing with you. Okay. Turn order ends up being way more important. And so there's just there's you dig deep on mods for sure in 5s.
And those cool things like your goddamn Phoenix don't get hurt by my Tuskens, which is also bullshit. Just calling Sasha out for that dickheaded move, which was awesome. Not really yet.
His Tuskens, you can't. His Tuskens.
Scored or
TJ's not salty. TJ's not salty about the 180% tenacity Tuskens.
Man, that is wild. That is so crooked, man. That was a crooked ass fight. That was a good one.
Man, those are some good salty chips. But I'm not salty. My chips are, but I'm not. No.
No. The salt from the sweat.
That's right.
I'm not salty. I'm just sweaty.
But it does go to Sasha's point, right? I do want to call it back out there. Doing those little things like that can go a long way. Because if you don't take the 2 seconds, like, this always works. I love those moments because when this always works and it doesn't work.
Oh, man. And you're an expert on those, TJ. You're an expert on the shit I didn't check the mods or shit I didn't check the data.
Yep. Or just a team, just a simple little spec I missed, and it's like I'll come back and call it, and then do it again.
Also, to pivot back to the Gideon thing.
Yeah,
I think Gideon's an interesting thing to put on defense. So I think in order to make Gideon work on defense, you have to like draw out like AdRad plus like maybe 1 or 2 other cheaper counters for it. So I guess my issue with putting Gideon on defense is that you have to put like Inquisitors in front of it to eat Radis. I'm like, I don't want you to Inquisitors my Reva. Fuck you. Right? Like you would use Gideon up front to punish not having access to that in the back, right? So if you were to try to utilize that on defense, I feel like you'd have to really stretch. And maybe it surprises me in 5s. I'm not saying it couldn't, but just from what I've seen in Arena and from what I saw during 3v3. Yes, the team has a hell of a punch, but if you have something like Radis where it's like, okay, cool, you targeted Jin, or my base literally exists. I wonder how that turns out. So that's the kind of thing swimming in my head.
There are a lot of cheap counters to it, and like I mentioned earlier, my inclination is to take mine on offense because I don't want to give it up for that cheap when it can punch so hard. But the one aspect that gives me some hope, again, maybe it's that RNG element I've been looking for on D, is in 5s to have a complete remnant squad, you're going to be including the original Gideon. And the original Gideon, with that 50% offense reduction, that combined with the team that's just going to hit super hard, so maybe you get lucky on targeting and that you take out their Radis, but it also really just it reduces the impact of that Radis ult, which is a true damage.
Yeah. And your stormtroopers handing out that prod up to every one of those dudes. Yeah.
I'm gonna only add one piece. I'm only gonna add one piece. I saw in 3s it was a trick, and I thought it was great. So I'm gonna only double what you're saying, Sasha. But don't forget death. The way the AI plays death. And they will hit you with the death mark at the same time it does the kill. So you start getting characters that don't get to come back. Well, in 5s, that's increased.
You're right.
So it's like the amount of times, and the AI does pretty damn well at using Death Trooper, right? We've seen it with Iden, so seeing what it's going to do with the new Gideon team with the damage reduction, I think is going to leave a lot of people surprised, and you may get the win, but you're going to be losing a whole bunch of characters, I think, in the process of trying to get that to work.
I think there's a reasonable chance you see Iden and Gideon in the back, because I can tell you from 3v3 that Wampa works and last 5v5 Wampa works just fine against Iden. Last 5v5 Wampa did not like that defense into offense. Now here's the problem, right? Because that means you have to put Shore on your Iden team just to have the extra tank there, and I don't know what the Iden team looks like.
That'd be my question to you.
Another point would be, don't forget that Dark Trooper can still go on Gideon. Dark Trooper still fits there if you want to put Death on Iden and put them next to each other and say Rat is one of these. Also, for offense, remember, Gidmay's not actually dead, because if you're playing this on offense, Troopers are usually not defensive squads in 5s for the most part, which means you have full autonomy over having all of your teams. Right? So you can decide where you put all your stuff. And there's a reasonable chance I may even try like a Gideon 4-man versus something in the back, just to have, maybe have Death available for Iden kind of thing, right? I don't know how much you, or to have Gideon available for something. I don't know how much, that team has so much punch and so much, just survivability baked in that I'm sure it can beat something like Ewok with just, Death Trooper. You know what I mean? I don't know how much it needs to beat some of these teams. Just because of how strong Gideon makes everybody with, the 75% offense, health, protection, crit damage.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what Gideon can do. I'm also looking forward to seeing what Maul plus Gideon can do on offense. That's another application of Gideon that I have been considering.
Good.
Because of Gar and ISC.
Okay.
Because you can do Gar, ISC, Canderous, and Gideon. You just have to make your Maul be his own speed stick.
Makes sense to me.
So I'll be speeding him up to about 350, I think, just so we can go in front of some stuff.
Wow, wait, this is Gideon you're talking about?
No, Maul. Because with Maul,
Maul,
Gar, and ISC, Maul doesn't have to be the damage dealer on that team because Gar and ISC exist.
Yeah.
So you can really lean into the fact that he has a base 190 speed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, mine's been I want to say 330 something forever.
Oh, but you need to be 350 plus to be able to get in front of stuff.
Yeah, you got to be able to wrap twice. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And like I said, with Gar and ISC, and Gideon as a dedicated tank, right? I think that team has, we'll just say GL applications, and I will let other people figure out what I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. I see it. Another topic, guys. Anything you want to talk about? By the way, we're just closing about in on an hour, so I think Sasha, you had to dip sooner than later. How much time you got?
Yeah, I have maybe about 5 minutes or so.
No, this is a great time to wrap it up.
To me, it's honestly the bows. It's going to go you have bow. What are your plans to do? Dagger, specifically to you, how are you looking at 5s when you don't have bow? And that'll be my specific. Dagger gets a special case, and I'm more interested in Dagger's thought on it because I think there's still room to where it's I don't have it, but can I make you fumble your bow and still get the win on it? But that's what my question. So for Tass, how are you looking at your bow team? Sasha, how are you looking at your bow? And then Dagger, what are your plans with not having bow and still playing at the upper echelons?
I mean, just real quick for me, bow on offense. I'm probably going to overkill something week 1. That's probably going to be the strategy, unless I find video evidence to show me that it's oh no, Tass, don't worry about it, because you know how it is. I'm going to be starting in the top bracket, and it's you don't really have margin to play, right? You still need to do something you feel is going to work. So if you're not confident on it, you're not going to do. You're not going to take a fight that you feel is improbable. So. Probably going to overkill something in absence of compelling video to the contrary. That's my piece.
Sasha?
Yeah, I think something similar. it's always tempting to just throw a new toy out on D, even if you know it's somewhat vulnerable, to invite the opponent to have to overkill or take some risk. So it's possible at the very beginning that you just shift the uncertainty to the other side of the table. But I also, I'm probably more likely to use it as a kind of get out of jail free non-GL counter.
Okay. And Dagger, the man of the hour, the one I'm most interested in. Your thought on the not having?
So I've already kind of touched on some of the thought processes that lead to not having her. For one, mentioning like seeing what the Remnant can do without Gideon, to have Gidme available, or CLS, dedicating CLS, because I expect if I don't have it, my opponent, there's a fair chance my opponent sets it. So making sure that Gideon can be reserved for Padme to just bonk off like 3 sides and make it 5-on-3, 5-on-2 as fast as possible, right? Just remember that in GAC, she's giving everybody like 130% health. So like Gidme is just gonna shred that fucking team. And then we also talked. Tass talked on like he talked on like using tools you have to bolster existing teams to try and turn off other counters. Like for example, I don't know what you're doing to my Qui-Gon with Beck, but it sure as shit ain't gonna be Bad Batch, so you can figure that shit out, right? So it's against these people with Bo, it's going to be giving them more things to figure out to just say, use your thing here if you want, use your thing here if you want, and then of course there's the applications of Maul on offense, because Lord Vader is one of the primary targets that gets shit stained. Or you put Lord Vader up front with Reva and say you have to use your bow here unless you want to use SLK. Right. So there's a lot of things that have been swimming in my mind, and like I said, I've kind of like sprinkled them in throughout this conversation. Because like you mentioned, I am cognizant of the fact that I am one of the have-nots. Man, if they had done this like 3 months ago, I would have had the ability to get her, and it's just kind of a bummer that it happened around the holidays.
Yes,
because it's like, man, I know Tass and I talk about not wanting to like spend around the holidays. Pretty much no matter what holiday it is. Right, all the Black Friday stuff always kind of feels bad too, because it's like, man, I still have to do my Christmas shopping. So CG knows when to like push people, when to push it to make it super exclusive. So. It is what it is. I do think that there are going to be, how do I phrase this? Because I don't think anybody in this chat falls into this category. But I think there's going to be a lot of like, maybe not a lot, but there's going to be some hubris and or complacency from opponents of mine if they have it over. And I think that's going to be pretty easy to exploit. Okay. Right? Because if they have it, they're going to be like, I'm just going to rotate a GL on defense for Derp. It's like, well, what GL are you setting? See? All right, cool. Right, I think that there's going to be, and especially week 1, I think I'm going to be much better off, because people are going to be still figuring their own way, and because I don't have the new toy, I don't have to figure that shit out. Right, so I'm going to be playing my own game the first week, which will, I think, benefit me against a fair number of my opponents who have her, because they're going to try to like shift something. Maybe they mess up using the new team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think week 2 and 3, I'm like, I don't want to say up a creek without a paddle, but to your point, TJ, week 2 and 3 is where I'm a little more nervous,
right,
about where I stand as far as being able to punch up against people with bow.
Yup.
I'll answer mine because I want to make sure that I address it as well. Good. I think Sasha's answer is the best one of all, only because everything that's been tested is non-Omi. Omis always seem to do a thing, and there is partial usage of the Scoundrel Datacron that does play into the bow team. So while I agree, the punch-up is huge, but there has been one adage that's always been there, and people don't follow it. They kind of bite some in the ass. Jabba was the same thing. I'm going to take it for offense when it first came out. And then the people who just put it on defense to do the old golden rule of you make it someone's problem. And it's like, oh, this is great on defense. Well, I learned it a week late, where the people who have followed the golden rule of this is brand new, you make it their problem, not yours, and then you learn from people's mistakes. Because people are keeping for offense is always a true thing. So I do agree. I think it's not great on offense or defense, whatever it's going to be. But making it someone else's problem and them either overkilling it, which is great because then that's if they don't have it for another tool, or trying to underkill it and they always take effect or the DC takes effect and then you get your ass bit and that gets me my win. I'm a fan of as well.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, guys, yeah, this was a good conversation. We kind of sprawled out there, and there's we covered early on that the Datacron situation looks pretty stable, so not a lot to discuss. That'll be for the next monthly video going into the next threes. But as always, thank you for joining me here. Appreciate you all making the time. Day after Christmas, I know things are crazy, so thanks so much for being available and making this time. I'm very much enjoy making this with you guys. Thank you so much. Let's to all the folks out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Gosh, I am just in a daze here because now they got me sitting here thinking in my head about stuff for the last team. So trying to wrap up, but I'm so distracted in my head right now. Anyway, as always, it's been real. It's been awesome. It's been real awesome. And we will see you here for the week 1 review on 5 versus 5. Take care.
Which already happened. Because this will come out after. So, yeah.
What? No. The week 1.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the 3v3. My bad.
Yeah. Oh,
and the 3v3 one already happened.
Yeah.
We already did that.
And that isn't what I said, so good job.
Yeah, fuck you.
All right, see you guys.
I can be wrong.
God knows you can be wrong.
Won't be the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Won't be the last.
I misheard you. Sorry.
I believe you.